were your initial thoughts when you first looked at the 60-plus page report?
Yeah, well, I think that my initial thought was I'm glad we did the study, and that the report was very thorough, and it was nice to see the in-depth structural review and analysis that occurred. It was also nice to know that shutting the bridge down was the right thing to do at that time for safety, and that we have a lot of options going forward.
They gave 6 options, going from doing nothing to building a brand new bridge that's a little bit wider than currently.
A 2-lane bridge.
A 2-lane bridge. So now, of course, they're going to make presentation Monday night at 7 with the council during their work session. What do you anticipate being some of the challenges that the council will be, the city staff will be looking at when they consider the 6 options?
Well, I think the biggest tension will be how to repair or rehabilitate that bridge and whether or not to replace it. When you look at the cost for the options versus the lifespan that they give you, ranging from repairs that'll take you 20 years to a new bridge that'll take you 75, I think you're going to look at that tension between the financial aspect of it and then the historic local aspect of what that current bridge means to people. There are a lot of diverse opinions and they're all strong. And so I think sorting through those and trying to find the best option will be a challenge, but it's important. When you get down here, you can see more of the corrosion than you can up above. So if you see up there some of the bearing plates.
Right there.
Today. So that's where we see some corrosion and how some of the embankment is losing some concrete. The old brackets are corroding.
Now, of course, this was built in 1917, so...
1917, and then there was work done on it in the, I want to say the 50s, the 80s, and the 2000s. So there has been, overhauls done at certain points. When you look up here, you can see some of the holes in the metal of the bracket that's holding the sidewalk. There was sidewalk repair done. I want to say that was in 2006 when a new deck was put on. Down here you can see that how the pier is losing, efflorescing salts coming through the concrete, but you can also see where it's losing cement along the top. So we can see where it's kind of washed out on the back side, and you'll see where it's washed out down
now, is this from more of salt coming off the tires during the winter?
Some is, and then some's just from being, 97-year-old, 98-year-old.
I would guess, I would say that probably some of this area was underwater in 08 when the river flooded.
Well, and back in 2013, even when we had that high water event in May, there was water up in the beams. So part of the problem with this bridge is it's not even over the 50-year flood level. So when we get a 50-year flood, water's going through the bridge, and now DNR requires it to be at least 3 feet above the 50-year level. So no matter what we do, we're going to have to raise the bridge up 3.5 feet if we work on it. So
that would probably mean not just shoring up that pier right there, but raising the level, the top level.
The whole thing will have to go up. So that means you'll have new bridge approaches.
What have you heard from members of the public as well as city leaders? What have you heard about this bridge? What do you feel is the putting the thumb on the pulse of everybody's thoughts in this?
I think the biggest takeaway is just the diversity of opinions and the strength of people's convictions. So they range from build a new 2-lane bridge there to repair what you have as a pedestrian-only bridge, to don't put any money into it, to put whatever it takes into it. So I think, it's just all different opinions from across the community and from all levels.
Now the 5 repair and or replace options range from nearly $1 million to almost $3 million.
Right.
And of course, the most being to replicate the style of the bridge, and of course, about $2.5 million is just a straight up replacement. How do you feel that people? Do you think people would go for the best possible option, or do you feel that they would probably go for the most cost-effective option?
Well, I think that depends on how you define the best possible option. For some people, defining the best possible option would be to lengthen the life of that green bridge as long as possible. For some people, the best possible option is a fully functioning road bridge that carries 2 lanes of traffic and pedestrians and has a long life. For others, it's going to be what's the most cost-effective per year of use. And so I think it's really hard to define what the best option is, and that's why it's going to be important to have the council and community work together to come to some sort of collaborative consensus. While some may want traffic to flow freely, others may not want any vehicle traffic across there and pedestrian only. So,
what are some things that people, whether it be staff or citizens, what are some things that people have to look at to make the best determination?
Well, I think first you have to decide what you want. Do you want just a pedestrian bridge? Do you want a historic-looking bridge? Do you want that bridge? Or do you want a road bridge? Do you want a bridge that would qualify for state or federal funding, which means it has to meet certain criteria for design and for the use of vehicles? Or do you want something that's just more of a local pedestrian use and locally funded? Do you want a bridge that maximizes return on investment for years of useful life and stretches your dollars out as long as possible on the time horizon? Or do you want an investment that tries to maintain the spirit of what's there as it is today? So once you can start answering the questions about what you want, then you can find the alternative that fits that desire as closely as possible.
At one point, back in when you closed this down in February, it was closed down to everything.
Right.
And I understand they had reopened the bridge for pedestrian use only for a while.
Right. So, as you know, in that study, pretty thorough analysis and calculation of structural ability through modeling. And what they found is that right now the sidewalk is capable of handling the 90-pound per square foot load for pedestrians. So that's why we felt like it was a good opportunity to at least have that open, so we had a pedestrian connection north and south of the river here while we evaluate the longer-term solutions for the bridge.
Now this would help with some kids being able to go from that side to
Absolutely,
southeast.
To southeast, exactly. Or folks wanting to ride their bikes around or go up to downtown and do some shopping or whatever.
Without having to go all the way to First Street.
Exactly, yep. So for folks on bikes or folks on foot, this does allow a shorter access and is part of that discussion about pedestrian versus vehicle bridge in the future.
Looking at the study as I did yesterday, it seems that the options for the engineers or the VJ Engineering was saying that probably the most feasible was option 2, which is simply shoring up the current bridge as a pedestrian-only bridge, or option 4, which is building a new bridge with a wooden deck for pedestrian only. Seemed to be the most feasible in their mind. Looking at the six options, do you feel personally, from what you have seen, do you believe maybe one of the vehicular options could also be feasible for the city?
Well, one of the factors that goes into some of those decisions that I would say would add some of those vehicular options as feasible is the fact that the Iowa DOT does have about $1 million in bridge funding available for that bridge. Mm-hmm. But that money is contingent upon us either repairing the bridge to the original design standard, which would be, I think, option 3, or building a bridge to today's standards, which would be option 6, which is that concrete bridge similar to like a C-33 bridge replacement. Mm-hmm. So if you meet the criteria, then what that does is that basically brings an additional $1 million to the table for a vehicle option.
So that would, so in that case, if you guys go with either options 3 or 6, that would make the city's portion anywhere between, the city's cost anywhere, if I remember correctly, anywhere between $500,000 and $1.5 million if you use one of those two options.
Yeah, I would say just to be safe, it would just reduce the cost by about $1 million. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I like to round up just to be safe when we come to cost and say, it would take a $2 million project down to $1 million or a $3 million down to $2 million. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing I think that's important to remember about this report is while those are cost estimates based on today's bids, it could be a while before we actually do a project. Mm-hmm. So I think the dollars should be used as just basic benchmarks or gauges to try to figure out what level of investment is appropriate. The bridge was initially riveted together, and then back in the 80s they replaced rivets with bolts on the east side, which is why the east side is a little bit stronger because it had more work done to it more recently. Now it's the west side here, the upstream side, that is showing more weakness in the latest analysis.
So now, what would you be recommending then? Of course, won't have action until sometime next month. But what are some things that you would probably recommend to council? When this actually does get towards action time?
Well, that's a good question. For me, my first recommendation is to put together a process to make a decision. So we're going to hear about the report at the study session on Monday. And then I think we need to work on what will the process be. Will we seek public input? Will we try to narrow options first? Will the council have a series of discussions before they make a decision? As far as which outcome is chosen, I don't have a recommendation on that. Again, I'm more of recommending figure out what you want first, and then we can figure out how to make that happen. So that's why we went with the 6 options to begin with, just so we had some starting point, and then we can narrow it from there. But as far as which specific option, we don't have recommendations on that at this time.